There's something about castles that has always fascinated me. They look beautiful and royal from the outside, but deep inside, their walls carry secrets that most of us can't even imagine. When I first stepped into one, I didn't just feel history, I felt a presence, like unseen eyes were following me. In the UK, many castles are said to be alive with spirits that refuse to leave, and the stories people share are chilling. Tonight, I want to take you inside those castles, where the past still walks, and ghosts continue to roam. 1 Chillingham Castle, Northumberland. I still remember the first time I stepped inside Chillingham Castle in Northumberland. The castle looked grand from the outside, but the moment I crossed the gates, a strange heaviness filled the air. It felt as if the walls had seen centuries of pain and were silently watching me. That evening, I joined a small guided tour. The guide kept saying this was the most haunted castle in England, but I honestly thought it was just a way to make the place more exciting for visitors. Everything changed when we reached the old corridor near the Pink Room. The guide told us about the famous ghost called the Blue Boy. According to history, people often heard cries of a child at midnight. For years, nobody knew why. Later, during some renovations, workers discovered a small skeleton of a boy hidden inside the castle wall, alongside scraps of blue clothing. Ever since then, many visitors claim they still see a flash of blue light in the darkness. As I stood in that corridor, I cannot explain what I felt. The walls were icy cold, even though it was summer. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound. It was like a child sobbing. At first, I thought maybe someone from the group was playing a trick. But when I turned, the others were as frozen as me, staring into the empty hallway. The sound grew softer, almost like a whisper, and then it disappeared completely. My heart was racing. I remember gripping my phone tightly, though I couldn't even think of recording it. It was one of those moments when you know something real, something beyond human, just brushed past you. Walking out of the castle later that night, I kept looking back at the windows. Part of me felt sorry for the boy, trapped in those walls for centuries. Another part of me felt like I had just walked out of a different world, a world where the dead still wander among the living. Even today, whenever someone mentions Chillingham Castle, that moment comes back to me, the chilling cry of a boy, the freezing corridor, and the feeling that he was still there, watching. 2 Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. I visited Edinburgh Castle on a cold evening, just before sunset. The castle stood tall on its rocky hill, overlooking the entire city. From a distance, it looked majestic, but as I walked closer, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling inside me. The air felt heavier, colder, as if the stone walls were alive with secrets they didn't want to share. During the tour, our guide spoke about the legends of the castle, the prisoners, the battles, and the ghosts that never left. He mentioned the story of the headless drummer and the lost bagpiper boy. At first, I thought it was just folklore, but something that night convinced me otherwise. When the group moved on, I stayed behind near one of the narrow passages. The place was silent, but suddenly, I heard the faint sound of drums echoing in the corridor. The rhythm was slow, steady, and it sent chills straight through me. I looked around quickly, but no one was there. The passage was empty. Trying to calm myself, I told my mind it must be the wind or some noise from the city. But then, I heard something else, the soft sound of bagpipes. The tune was broken, like someone playing from a great distance. My heart started pounding because the guide had said the piper disappeared centuries ago while exploring the underground tunnels. His body was never found, but his music was said to return at night. The strangest part was how real it felt. I wasn't just hearing a sound, it felt like the music was circling around me, weaving through the stone walls. I even remember feeling a cold brush of air pass by my arm, as if someone had just walked past me. I wanted to call out, to ask if anyone else could hear it, but my voice got stuck in my throat. My hands were shaking, and every step toward the group felt heavier, like the castle didn't want to let me go. When I finally reached the others, the sound stopped instantly, silence returned, and it was as if nothing had happened at all. Even now, when I think back, I don't doubt what I heard. The drums, the bagpipes, the icy chill in that narrow passage, it wasn't imagination. Something, or someone, was there with me inside Edinburgh Castle. And I truly believe the spirits of those lost souls are still wandering through those ancient halls, waiting for anyone who dares to listen. 3 Dover Castle, Kent. I had always heard that Dover Castle was not only a fortress of history but also one of the most haunted places in England. When I finally got the chance to visit, I thought I was prepared. But nothing could have prepared me for what I felt inside those underground tunnels. The day was bright, but the moment I entered the castle's wartime tunnels, everything turned dark and heavy. The air smelled damp, like old stone mixed with smoke. Our guide explained how soldiers once lived and died there during World War II. He said many people believe their spirits never left. At first, I brushed it off as just another ghost story. But deep down, I could already sense something was different about this place. As we walked further into the tunnels, I began to hear faint footsteps behind me. The problem was, everyone in the group was in front of me. The sound was soft, like boots on stone, keeping pace with me no matter how fast or slow I walked. My skin prickled, and I kept turning around, but the passage was empty every time. Then, out of nowhere, I felt a sudden drop in temperature. My breath came out like smoke even though it wasn't that cold outside. That's when I heard it, the distant roll of a drum. The sound echoed through the tunnel, low and steady, almost like a heartbeat. My chest tightened because I remembered the story our guide told us about the headless drummer boy who was killed here centuries ago. People say his spirit still warns the castle of danger. The sound grew louder. I wasn't the only one who noticed it. A woman from our group gasped, clutching her coat tighter, and whispered, "Do you hear that?" The guide froze for a moment, his face pale, and then quickly tried to move us along. But before we left that section, something else happened that I will never forget. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow move across the tunnel wall. It wasn't one of us, no one was standing there. It was tall, the shape of a man, but when I turned fully, there was nothing. Just darkness. My hands were trembling when we finally stepped out into the daylight again. The sun was shining, birds were singing, but inside I still felt the echo of those drums. To this day, I can't explain it. All I know is that Dover Castle is more than just stone walls and history. It is a place where the past still walks, where the spirits of soldiers and a lonely drummer boy continue to roam, reminding us that they were never truly gone. For Glamis Castle, Scotland. When I first arrived at Glamis Castle in Scotland, I was struck by how beautiful and grand it looked. Its towers stretched toward the sky, and the gardens around it were peaceful. But as I walked closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that this place was hiding something dark behind its beauty. Inside, the halls were filled with old paintings and heavy wooden furniture. The air smelled of age, like dust mixed with candle wax. Our guide told us about the legends of Glamis, the secret chambers, the cursed family history, and the ghosts that still haunted the rooms. I listened carefully, but part of me thought it was all just old stories meant to entertain tourists. That thought didn't last long. We stopped in a long corridor lined with portraits. As I stood there, I suddenly felt a wave of cold air brush past me, even though all the windows were closed. At the same time, I noticed one of the portraits, a stern-looking woman, almost staring back at me. It was Lady Janet Douglas, the guide explained. She was accused of witchcraft in the 1500s and burned at the stake. People say her spirit never found peace and still roams the castle. As he spoke, I swear I smelled smoke, thick, burning smoke, though no one else seemed to notice at first. My chest tightened, and for a second, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then, faintly, I heard what sounded like a woman crying. The sound was soft, but it came from the end of the corridor where no one was standing. My heart was racing. I tried to focus, to see if anyone was there, but it was just shadows and darkness. Later, as we moved through another room, I lagged behind for a moment. That's when I heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, right behind me. I spun around quickly, but the hallway was empty. The footsteps stopped the instant I turned, leaving only silence. My hands shook as I caught up with the group. The guide also mentioned the story of the monster of Glamis, a deformed child hidden in the castle who was never allowed to leave his secret chamber. Some believe his presence still lingers. Standing there, I felt like eyes were watching from behind the walls, unseen but close. When I finally stepped outside into the fresh air, I felt a huge relief. But the castle behind me seemed to hold on, like it wasn't ready to let go. Even now, when I think of Glamis Castle, I remember that suffocating smell of smoke, the cries of a woman who died centuries ago, and the footsteps that followed me through those dark corridors. I went there as a visitor, but I left convinced that Glamis Castle is not just history, it is a place where the dead still live among the living. 5 Windsor Castle, London. The first time I visited Windsor Castle, I expected nothing more than royal history, grand halls, and beautiful architecture. But what I felt there was something far more powerful, a presence that history books never talk about. As I walked through the state apartments, I was amazed by the paintings, the gold decorations, and the silence that filled those huge rooms. But deep inside, I felt watched, as if someone was following my every step. At first, I brushed it off as imagination. After all, it was the Queen's residence, surely I was just nervous about being in such an important place. Our guide spoke about the famous ghosts of Windsor. He mentioned that many visitors and even staff have seen King Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I wandering the halls. I smiled politely, but inside I thought, these are just legends. That thought changed quickly. In one long corridor, I suddenly felt the temperature drop sharply. It wasn't a normal chill, it was the kind of cold that goes straight into your bones. My breath came out in small clouds, even though the heating inside was on. Then I heard it, the sound of heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing down the corridor. I froze. The footsteps grew louder, and in that moment, I remembered the guide's words about Henry VIII. People say he is often heard pacing angrily, his spirit restless even in death. My heart pounded as the sound came closer, but when I turned toward it, the corridor was completely empty. Later, in another chamber, I stayed behind while the group moved forward. The room felt heavy, and suddenly, I smelled something unusual, burnt wood mixed with perfume. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a woman's voice, faint but clear. It wasn't words, more like a sigh or a whisper. The guide had mentioned Elizabeth I is often seen wearing black, her spirit appearing near the library. For a second, I felt as if she was right there beside me. I cannot explain what happened next. The corner of the room seemed darker than before, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw the outline of a woman standing tall, with a commanding presence. I blinked, and the figure was gone. My legs felt weak, and I hurried to rejoin the group, trying to act normal though my hands were shaking. When I finally stepped outside into the daylight, Windsor Castle looked as calm and royal as ever. But inside, I knew the stories were real. I had felt the cold anger of Henry VIII, and I had heard the whisper of a queen long gone. Windsor Castle is not just a royal home, it is a place where kings and queens of the past still walk, reminding us that history never truly dies.